but with divine readiness. And he says, I am ready to pour out my blessing on you. But here is the truth that so many overlook. Before that blessing can flow, before the doors can swing open, before the river of favor can cover your life, God will first ask you to let go of some things. Because God will not fill hands that are already clinging to what is holding you back. God will not pour pure water into a cup still filled with poison. And God will not move you forward if you insist on dragging the weight of the past into the place He has prepared for your future. Right now, I am speaking to someone who has been praying for a breakthrough, fasting for an answer, crying out for change, and you have been asking, why hasn't it happened yet? You've been wondering why the blessing seems delayed, why the promise feels distant. But God is saying to you today, I am not withholding because I do not care. I am withholding because you are still holding on to something I have told you to release. You see, we often think that the only thing standing between us and God's blessing is time. We say when God is ready, it will happen. But God's timing is not the only factor. Our readiness is, and part of readiness is release. You cannot walk into the next chapter of your life if your hands are chained to the old one. You cannot claim the new thing God has for you while still clutching the things He has told you to drop. And if you ignore this truth, you will delay what God has already prepared. Some of you are asking God for a blessing that would destroy you if He gave it to you right now, because your heart is still bound by the very things He's trying to cut away. God's blessings are not cheap gifts, they are holy assignments. And if He sees that your current attachments, habits, or attitudes would corrupt the blessing, He will wait until you let them go. God is not punishing you. He is protecting you. He is not denying you. Who He is preparing you. Every delay, every closed door, every not yet from God is His way of saying, I love you too much to give you this while you're still carrying that. And the moment you release what God has been asking you to release, you will feel the wind of His blessing push you forward. Right now, God is whispering into your spirit, clearer than the noise of your fears, louder than the whispers of doubt. And He is saying, let it go. That pain you've nursed for years, that bitterness you've carried like a badge of honor, that relationship that keeps you tied to old patterns, that fear that convinces you to settle instead of rise, God is saying, lay it down, drop it, leave it. Because until you do, you will keep circling the same wilderness, wondering why you have not entered your promised land. And let me tell you, letting go is not weakness. It is spiritual warfare. Because when you release what God told you to release, you break the chains the enemy has been using to keep you bound. When you open your hands, God opens the heavens. When you trust Him enough to drop what is familiar, He will place in your life what is far greater than you imagined. There are 4 things, my friend, that God often asks His people to let go of before He releases the fullness of His blessing. And though they may look different in every life, the principle is the same. If you do not release them, they will rob you of what God wants to give you. The first is the past. And I don't mean simply forgetting it. I mean refusing to let it define you. Some of you are living in the shadow of what happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even last month. You replay the mistakes. You relie the failures. You rehash the words people spoke over you. And because you have kept the past alive in your heart, you have not made room for the future. God says, I am doing a new thing. But the truth is, new things cannot live in a house full of old memories. Until you decide that yesterday is over, tomorrow cannot begin. The second is bitterness. You cannot carry the poison of unforgiveness into the place of God's blessing. A bitterness is a slow killer. It robs your peace, clouds your judgment, and hardens your heart. And yet so many hold on to it because it feels like justice. If I let go, they win. You say, but God is telling you, holding on to bitterness doesn't punish them. It punishes you. And until you let it go, you cannot receive the fullness of God's favor. His blessing flows best through a clean heart, not a clenched fist. The third is fear. Fear will convince you to shrink back when God tells you to step forward. Fear will cause you to settle for less when God has called you to more. Fear will whisper, what if it doesn't work? When God is saying, what if it does? Fear is the enemy's favorite weapon to stop you from moving into God's promises. And until you decide to trust God more than you trust your fear, you will remain stuck in places you were never meant to stay. And the fourth is control. Oh, how we love to be in control. We pray, God, have your way. And then we hand him a list of how he should do it. We want the blessing, but we want it on our terms, in our timing, in the way we expect. But God's blessings rarely come in the package we imagine. And sometimes the greatest act of faith is to take your hands off the wheel and let God drive you where he knows you need to go. My friend, these four things, the past, bitterness, fear, and control, are the very weights that keep so many people from walking in the fullness of what God has for them. And right now, God is calling you to release them. He is saying, you have carried them long enough. You have cried over them long enough. You have prayed for change. But the change begins with you. Drop them. Trust me. Watch what I will do. Because here is the truth. God is not waiting to decide whether to bless you. The blessing is already prepared. The door is already built. The river is already flowing. But he will not open it while your hands are clinging to what he told you to let go. Release it, and you will see the floodgates of heaven open over your life. My friend, hear me well. When God calls you to let go, it is never to leave you empty-handed. God never asks you to release something unless he has something greater to put in its place. But here is the tragedy. Many people miss the blessing because they fear the emptiness in between. They fear that if they let go of the past, they will have nothing left to hold. They fear that if they forgive, they will lose their sense of justice. They fear that if they release control, their life will spiral into chaos. But the truth is that empty space is exactly where God wants to meet you. That empty space is where his power is revealed. If you fill every corner of your life with your own strength, your own plans, and your own attachments, you will never see what God can do with surrendered space. Let me tell you, God does his best work in the space you cannot fill. He does his miracles in the gap between what you release and what he provides. And if you trust him enough to let go, you will see him move in ways that will leave you speechless. Think of a seed. A seed cannot grow unless it is buried, hidden, and seemingly lost in the ground. If the seed clings to the comfort of sunlight and the safety of your hand, it will remain small, unfruitful, unchanged. But when you release it into the soil, it dies to what it was, so it can become what it was meant to be. That is what God is asking of you. Release it, bury it. Trust that what feels like loss is actually the start of growth. Letting go is not just about removing obstacles. It is about proving to God that you trust his way more than your own understanding. Too many people pray for a blessing while secretly believing they know better than God. They want his provision without his process, his reward without his requirements. But God's blessings come with conditions. And one of the greatest conditions is obedience. Obedience is not half-hearted surrender. It is complete release. It is saying, God, even if I do not understand, even if it hurts, even if it leaves me feeling vulnerable, I will let go because I know you have never failed me before. Some of you are still holding on because you think you are protecting yourself. You think that if you keep your guard up, you will avoid disappointment. But the wall you built to keep out pain has also been keeping out God's blessings. You cannot receive with closed hands. And you cannot be filled while you are still clinging to what drains you. Sometimes God has to strip your hands bare so he can place in them what will truly sustain you. And here is the sobering truth. The longer you hold on to what God has told you to let go, the heavier it becomes. What may have once been a small burden will grow into a chain that wraps itself around your future. At first, you carry it easily, thinking it's not that bad. But over time, it slows you, bends your posture, and robs you of strength until one day you realize you are so weighed down that you cannot even take a step toward the blessing. My friend, that is not God's will for you. He did not create you to drag chains into your promised land. He created you to walk freely without the weight of yesterday pulling you back. When God tells you to let go, he is not negotiating. He is commanding for your own good. God sees what you do not see. He knows what is up ahead. He knows the battles you will face tomorrow, and He knows the blessings that are already on their way. And if He says release it, it means that thing will not serve you in the place He is taking you. What you think is helping you may be the very thing holding you hostage. I must tell you, there is a danger in delayed obedience. The longer you wait, the more it costs. Some of the greatest losses in life are not because God failed to deliver, but because we failed to let go in time. If you delay, you may miss the appointed season. There are blessings that come with a window, a moment in time when God is ready to pour out favor. But if that moment comes and your hands are still gripping what He told you to release, the blessing may pass you by. And understand this, letting go is not just about the big things. Sometimes it's the small, subtle attachments that block the flow of God's favor. That quiet resentment you never dealt with. That hidden fear you've disguised as being careful. That private habit you keep telling yourself you'll quit or one day. God is saying no, not tomorrow, now. Because those small things have a way of growing into giants. And giants will always stand in the way of your promised land unless you deal with them before you get there. Do not think for a moment that God's call to release is to harm you. It's to make you lighter so you can move faster. It is to make you freer so you can climb higher. Every single thing God asks you to let go of is something that will either slow you, distract you, or destroy you if you keep it. And if you could see the blessing that waits for you on the other side, you would drop it without hesitation. But here is the challenge. Faith is trusting God without seeing the full picture. Faith is believing that what He has ahead is better than what you have now, even if what you have now feels comfortable. And comfort is dangerous because it convinces you to settle. God is not calling you to a life of comfort. He is calling you to a life of growth. And growth always requires release. There is someone listening right now who knows exactly what God is telling them to let go. You don't have to guess. You don't need another sign. You already feel it in your spirit. Every time you pray, it's there. Every time you try to plan your future, it rises up in your thoughts. And yet you've been wrestling, arguing with God in your heart, saying, maybe later, maybe after I'm ready, maybe after I understand why. But my friend, delayed obedience is disobedience. And if you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you may miss the blessing altogether. When God says, let go, He is not asking for negotiation. He is giving you an invitation to step into a better season. That better season is not far from you. It is not years away. It is as close as your willingness to obey. The moment you release what is in your hands, God will release what is in His. And what He has is far greater, far richer, far more powerful than anything you could ever hold on to yourself. My friend, there is a truth that must settle deep into your heart today. God is not limited by your circumstances, your history, or your current position. God can bless you anywhere, at any time, in any season. But there is one thing that can stop His blessing from flowing in your life. The unwillingness to release what He has told you to release. God can open doors no man can shut, but He will not open them if you are still dragging through them the baggage that He has commanded you to drop. That baggage will not fit through the narrow doorway of His purpose. The doorway to your blessing is not wide and careless. It is narrow and precise. And to pass through, you must lay down everything that will not serve you in the place He has taken you. Some people stand in front of that doorway for years, begging God to let them through while refusing to let go of what's in their hands. But the truth is, you cannot enter carrying that resentment. You cannot enter clinging to that relationship He has asked you to release. You cannot enter holding on to the same fears, doubts, and self-made plans that have kept you bound for so long. Letting go is not the loss you think it is. It is the clearing of the ground so God can build something greater. When a farmer prepares a field for planting, he does not leave the weeds, the rocks, and the debris. He clears the land. It takes effort. It feels like destruction at first, but without that clearing, the seed has no chance to grow. God is trying to clear your life of what will choke His blessing before it even has a chance to take root. The question is, will you allow Him? Many people pray for God to do a new thing in their life, but they still decorate their hearts with the old.
They want a new season, but they are unwilling to close the door on the last one.
My friend, seasons change when obedience begins. The rain of God's blessing will not fall on a heart that is still sowing seeds from a past God told you to leave behind. Sometimes the thing you must let go of is not even bad in itself. It's just not meant for you anymore. God can bless something in one season and require you to release it in the next. If you cling to what was blessed yesterday, you may miss what He is blessing today. The manna that fed the people in the wilderness was a miracle, but it was never meant to be permanent. When God moved them to the promised land, the manna stopped, not because He abandoned them, but because He had a new provision waiting. If they had spent their days crying for yesterday's manna, they would have missed the harvest in front of them. This is why trust is essential. Trusting God means you believe that whatever He takes from your hand, He will replace with something better. It means you stop trying to figure out why and start walking in. Yes, you may not understand now, but understanding often comes after obedience, not before. If you are waiting to understand everything before you let go, you are not operating in faith. You are operating in control. And control is one of the greatest enemies of divine blessing. Control gives you the illusion of safety, but it will rob you of destiny. Control says, I will move when I know what will happen. Faith says, I will move because I know who is leading me. When you give up control, you are not walking into chaos. You are walking into alignment with the one who already sees the end from the beginning. I must also warn you, there are things you are holding on to right now that look harmless, but are slowly poisoning your spirit. They are small compromises, quiet habits, unspoken thoughts you allow to remain in your heart. These are the things that dull your hunger for God's presence and weaken your sensitivity to His guidance. You may think it's just a small thing, but in the spiritual realm, small things grow. And what grows in your heart will eventually shape your actions and determine your direction. When God calls you to let go, He is not only protecting your future, He's protecting your heart. The blessing He has for you is not just about material gain or visible success. It is about transformation from the inside out. And transformation cannot happen if you are still feeding your soul with what God is trying to remove. Do not be deceived into thinking you can carry both the blessing and the burden. Oil and water do not mix. Light and darkness cannot share the same space. God's blessing demands purity of heart and willingness of spirit. If you try to carry both, one will eventually destroy the other. And make no mistake, God sees what you cannot hide. You can smile in public, speak faith-filled words, and appear surrendered on the outside. But God knows if your hand is still clutching what you promised to lay down. You cannot deceive the one who formed you. He is not waiting for your performance. He is waiting for your surrender. My friend, I must speak this with urgency. Your blessing is closer than you think. You have prayed. You have waited. You have endured seasons of silence. And the door is right in front of you. But that door will not open until you release what is in your grip. This is not a suggestion from God. It is a requirement. The sooner you obey, the sooner you will see His power unfold in ways that will leave no doubt it was His hand at work. Some of you are on the edge of the greatest breakthrough of your life. And the only thing standing between you and it is one act of obedience, one act of letting go, one moment of trusting God enough to drop what is familiar and step into what is unknown but divinely prepared. And when you do, you will look back and wonder why you held on so long. Because the moment you let go, you will feel lighter. The moment you let go, you will see clearer. The moment you let go, you will hear God's voice with greater clarity than you have in years, and you will realize that the thing you feared losing was never your source. God was. God has always been, and God will always be. My friend, I must tell you, when God calls you to let go, it is never a suggestion meant to be taken lightly. It is a divine instruction, a command wrapped in love meant to position you for the very thing you have been praying for. Too often people treat God's call to release as if it were optional, as if they can hold on a little longer and still receive what He has prepared. But you cannot step into the fullness of God's blessing with divided loyalty. You cannot serve two masters in your heart. One will always pull you away from the other. There is a sacred principle in God's order. Before He gives, He often takes away. Before He multiplies, He prunes. Before He exalts, He humbles. And in every one of those stages, letting go is required. Think of a tree in autumn. Its leaves do not fall because the tree is dying, but because the tree is preparing for the next season. God is doing the same in your life. The shedding you feel is not punishment. It is preparation. What you are losing now is making room for what will grow later. But here's where many stumble. They try to bring old leaves into a new season. They cling to what was meant to fall away naturally. They glue the dead leaves back to their branches and wonder why there's no fresh life. My friend, God is saying to you today, stop holding on to what I have already called finished. Stop trying to keep alive what I have allowed to die. Let it go so I can make all things new. Letting go requires courage because it means stepping into the unknown. And the unknown terrifies the human heart because it cannot be predicted or controlled. But the unknown is not unknown to God. What you see as uncertainty, God sees as His perfect design. What feels to you like an empty road is in truth a path He has already walked ahead of you. Every stone, every bend, every detail, God has already been there and He has prepared it for your good. Sometimes the hardest thing to let go of is not the pain, but the identity you built around it. There are people who have carried hurt for so long they don't know who they would be without it. Their wound has become their name. Their struggle has become their story. But God did not call you to be defined by your wound. He called you to be refined by it. That means you must release even the part of yourself that has grown comfortable in the shadow of your struggle. And then there's this. Letting go is not just about removing what is bad. It's about making space for what is greater. If your hands are full of what is good enough, they will never be empty enough to receive what is best. Many of us are not trapped by sin or destruction. We are trapped by comfort. We have settled for less because it is familiar. And we are afraid that God's more might require more of us than we are willing to give. But hear me. Every greater blessing from God will demand a greater level of surrender. When God calls you to release, He will not force your hands open. He will wait until you willingly unclench your grip. And in that moment of surrender, something supernatural happens. Your heart softens, your mind clears, your spirit aligns. And suddenly the space that was once filled with anxiety, fear, or regret becomes the space where God plants His promise. And His promise never returns empty. Some of you are standing at a spiritual crossroads right now. On one side is the familiar, the things you've always known, the patterns you've always followed, the safety net you've built for yourself. On the other side is the unknown, the territory you've never walked, the blessing you've never tasted, the level of freedom you've never experienced. And between the two stands God's voice saying, choose. Will you trust me enough to let go of the familiar and step into the future I have for you? Letting go is not just an act of faith. It is an act of war against every lie that says you will not survive without what you are releasing. That is the enemy's greatest tactic, to convince you that the thing holding you back is actually holding you together. He will whisper that if you let go, you will fall apart. But God says, if you let go, I will hold you together with my own hands. And there is no safer place to be than in the hands of the one who formed you. It is better to walk into an uncertain future with God than to remain in a certain prison without Him. The walls you think are protecting you may actually be keeping you from the very thing you've been praying for. Some of you have been asking God to open doors, but you are still sitting in a locked room with the key in your hand. The key is obedience. The door is letting go. The freedom is on the other side. And remember this, when God tells you to release something, He is not subtracting, He is multiplying. God never leaves His faithful people in deficit. Every time you put something down for His sake, He replaces it with something better. Sometimes not immediately, sometimes not in the way you expect, but always in the way that is best for you. That is why you must learn to trust His character, even when you cannot trace His plan. You may not feel ready. You may not feel strong enough. You may think, I can't do this yet. But strength is not the requirement. Willingness is. God supplies the strength. Once you take the step, the moment you open your hands, you will find His strength already waiting to fill them. And that is when you will see that the act of letting go was never about loss. It was about making room for God's glory to fill your life in ways you could not imagine. My friend, there comes a point when holding on costs more than letting go. There comes a moment when what you are clutching so tightly is no longer a comfort but a chain. And the longer you hold it, the deeper it wraps itself around your life. Until one day you realize you have been dragging it through every prayer, every opportunity, every blessing that tried to reach you. That is why God in His mercy will sometimes allow you to feel the weight of what you're carrying. Not to crush you, but to convince you it's time to release it. When God calls you to let something go, it is not a random demand. It is targeted. It is precise. It is because that thing, whether a relationship, a habit, a thought pattern, or a fear, is standing directly between you and the next move He has for your life. God will never compete with your idols. He will never force His blessings to sit alongside what He has declared unclean for your future. If you want His best, you must be willing to drop what is less. Too often we pray for the blessing without preparing for the sacrifice it requires. We want the harvest without the plowing. We want the crown without the refining fire. But God does not work that way. Before He trusts you with increase, He will test your willingness to obey. And the test is rarely in abundance. It is in release. Can you let go when everything in you wants to hold on? Can you trust His plan when yours is falling apart? Can you believe that losing this thing is not the end but the beginning of something far greater? God's blessings are not just about giving. They are about transformation. And transformation always involves removal. Think of a sculptor. The beauty of the statue comes not from adding more clay, but from chipping away what does not belong. God is sculpting you right now. Every cut, every chip, every moment of letting go is shaping you into who you need to be to carry the weight of His promise. If you resist the chisel, you resist the masterpiece. And let me tell you something, God will not bless you in a way that competes with His voice in your life. If the thing you are holding on to is louder than His guidance, He will not hand you the blessing until you quiet the noise. Sometimes letting go is not just about releasing physical things. It's about silencing the influences that drown out His direction. That may mean stepping away from certain people, certain environments, or certain habits that keep your mind cluttered and your heart distracted. One of the greatest lies the enemy tells is that letting go will leave you with nothing. But with God, nothing is never nothing. In His hands, emptiness becomes fullness, loss becomes gain, and surrender becomes victory. God specializes in taking what seems empty and filling it to overflowing. The widow who thought she had only a little oil discovered that in God's hands, that little became more than enough. That is the God you serve, the one who turns release into abundance. But here's the truth. Letting go is not something you do once and never face again. It is a posture, a way of living. Because as God takes you from glory to glory, each new level will require a new surrender. The things that were permissible in your last season may be a hindrance in your next. This is why you must stay sensitive to His voice, always ready to lay down whatever He points to without delay and without debate. Delay is dangerous. Every day you hold on to what God has told you to release. You give the enemy more time to use it against you. That bitterness you carry will grow roots. That fear you entertain will build walls. That toxic connection you maintain will pull you further from where you are meant to be. What you tolerate will eventually dominate. This is why God's command to release is always urgent. It is His way of protecting you from a future trap you cannot yet see. And here is the thing. Sometimes letting go will make you look foolish to others. People will question you. They will tell you to hold on, to try harder, to give it more time. They will not understand why you walked away from what they thought was good. But you are not living for their understanding. You are living for God's approval. When God says it's time, you must move even if no one else agrees. Because the same people who doubt you now will be the ones who marvel later when they see what God has done with your obedience. My friend, the life God has for you is not behind you. He's ahead of you. You cannot step into it while looking over your shoulder, longing for what was. You cannot run forward while your feet are tangled in yesterday's ropes. The sooner you release, the sooner you will be free. And freedom is not just the absence of chains. It is the ability to move without resistance in the direction God is calling you. And make no mistake, when you finally let go, you will not just walk into your blessing, you will walk into a deeper relationship with God Himself. Because letting go is at its core an act of trust. It is you saying, God, I believe you more than I believe my fear. I believe you more than I believe my own plans. I believe that you are better than anything I am giving up. And when you live with that kind of trust, blessing is not something you chase. It is something that chases you. God has already prepared the table for you. The seat has your name on it. The feast is ready. But you cannot sit down carrying the baggage of what He told you to leave behind. You must come empty-handed, ready to receive what only He can give. And when you do, you will see that every release was worth it. Every tear, every sacrifice, every moment of uncertainty will pale in comparison to the joy of walking in His promise. My beloved, when you truly trust in God, you understand that nothing in your life is random. Every delay, every detour, every closed door, and even every disappointment is woven into the perfect design of His wisdom. God does not make mistakes. If He has withheld something from you, it is not because He has forgotten you, but because He is protecting you, preparing you, and positioning you for something far greater. Sometimes what you thought was a rejection is actually God's redirection toward your true destiny. Do not measure your life by the present moment alone. What you see now is only one frame of the picture, but God sees the entire masterpiece. The path may seem crooked to you, but from the perspective of the Almighty, it is perfectly straight, leading exactly where He intends. You may not understand why certain people left, why certain prayers seem unanswered, or why certain doors remain shut. But if you knew what God knows, you would thank Him for every no and every delay. There are times when God hides you in the shadows to protect you from dangers you cannot see. Just as a gardener covers a seed in the soil before it bursts forth into the light, God sometimes covers you in seasons of obscurity so your roots grow deep before your life blooms. Do not despise these hidden seasons. They are not punishment. They are preparation. The fruit is always worth the waiting when God is the one growing it. And remember this, when God begins to open the way, no force in the heavens or the earth can stand in His path. The mountains you feared will flatten. The rivers you thought you could not cross will part. And the enemies that surrounded you will be scattered. God is the master of turning impossibilities into testimonies. He can transform the very thing that threatened to destroy you into the very thing that will promote you. So keep walking with your head lifted high. Speak words of faith, not fear. Stand firmly in trust, for the same God who controls the rising of the sun and the setting of the moon is the same God who holds your future. He has never failed, and He will not begin with you. When God places you in a season of waiting, it is not because He has forgotten you. It is because He is preparing you. Preparation is not punishment. It is the process by which God strengthens your faith, sharpens your vision, and aligns your steps with His perfect will. You may look around and see others moving ahead, receiving breakthroughs, living the life you've been praying for. But God says, be still and know that I am working in ways you cannot yet see. Just because you do not see movement in the physical does not mean nothing is happening in the spiritual. In fact, the greatest works of God are often done in silence in the hidden places where only He can see. Understand this, Every delay from God is divine protection. There are doors you think you are ready to walk through, but God knows what's on the other side. He sees the traps, the betrayals, the burdens that would crush you if you enter too soon. That is why He will close some doors no matter how hard you knock, and He will open others only when your heart, mind, and spirit are ready to handle them. His timing is not slow. It is perfect. If He is making you wait, it is because He is preparing something greater than what you asked for. The enemy wants you to mistake waiting for abandonment. But the truth is, God's presence is strongest in those moments when you feel nothing is changing. The seed does not sprout the moment it is planted. It must remain hidden in the dark soil, watered by faith and patience until the right time comes for it to break through the ground. You are that seed. God has planted you in the soil of His purpose. And though you feel buried, you are not buried to die. You are planted to grow. So do not let impatience push you out of God's plan. Do not let frustration make you settle for less than what He has prepared for you. If you move before His appointed time, you will carry burdens you were never meant to bear. But if you wait upon Him, you will rise with strength you never knew you had. You will see how every tear, every delay, every lonely night was part of a greater plan to bring you into a blessing so great you will say, God's way was better than mine. My beloved, understand this. Every delay you face, every door that seems closed, every moment that feels like a dead end is not a sign of God abandoning you. It's a sign of God repositioning you. You see, when God is working behind the scenes, He is not rushing according to your clock. He is orchestrating according to His perfect plan. What you perceive as silence is not the absence of God. It is the stillness before His move. Just like a seed buried deep in the soil seems lifeless, you too may feel hidden. But in that hidden place, God is nourishing you, shaping you, and preparing you for a breakthrough that will not be small, it will be mighty. Do not be deceived by appearances. The enemy will try to convince you that nothing is changing, but God's power does not operate by human sight. Faith is trusting Him when the evidence is invisible. God does not need visible progress to fulfill His promise. He speaks, and it becomes reality. One command from Him can shift your entire life in a moment. That is why you must keep moving forward even when you see no reason to. The battle is not yours to fight in your own strength. The victory is already written in the unseen by the hand of God. And let me tell you this, the people who underestimated you, the ones who mocked your faith, the ones who thought your prayers were pointless, will one day witness the very thing they said was impossible. For when God decides to honor you, no voice, no force, no power can stop it. God can take the same situation that looked like your downfall and turn it into your elevation. He can use the very stone thrown at you to build your stepping place to the next level. This is why you must guard your heart from despair, because despair blinds you to the movements of God. So I say to you, stand firm. Let your trust be unshakable. Let your hope be anchored in the one who created the heavens and the earth. God has not forgotten you. Every tear you have shed, every night you have cried yourself to sleep, every prayer you whispered when you had no strength left, they have all been recorded by Him. And when the appointed time comes, He will release what He has been preparing for you, and it will exceed every expectation. For God is not just the God of enough. He is the God of more than enough. When God is on your side, every obstacle becomes an opportunity, and every trial becomes a stepping stone. The world may rise against you, but their power is limited. For the one who commands the heavens and the earth has already written your victory. You must understand, nothing in your life is random. Every delay, every closed door, every unexpected turn is part of God's divine arrangement for your ultimate good. You may feel pressed by the weight of your burdens, but it is often in the crushing that the purest oil flows. God is shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for a position you could never reach without. First, enduring this season of testing. Do not be deceived by what you see with your eyes. The enemy thrives on illusion, but God works in truth. The storm you are facing is not the end. It is the signal that your breakthrough is near. Even when you hear no answers, God is moving. Even when you see no signs, God is arranging. Even when you feel no strength, God is sustaining you. That is why the wise do not waste their time in panic. They bow in patience and trust the timing of the Almighty. Remember, the silence of God is not the absence of God. The waiting room is not the wasteland. It is the workshop of destiny. Every prayer you whisper, every tear you shed, every step you take in faith is stored and recorded by God. And when the appointed moment arrives, He will release blessings so abundant that they will overshadow the pain you endured. You will stand in awe, realizing that every sleepless night and every lonely road was worth it, because God was crafting something greater than you ever imagined. So guard your heart. Do not let bitterness poison your spirit. Do not let fear dictate your choices. Do not let the voices of doubt speak louder than the voice of faith within you. The same God who split the sea for His servants, who brought light into the deepest darkness, is the same God who is walking beside you now. He has not abandoned you. He has not overlooked you. And He will not fail you.